that this city is my home. And I've made a life for myself here along with thousands of other English, Welsh and Northern Irish people. I'm proud to live here and to know that I am as welcome here as anyone else. As an Englishwoman, a Brit, and I hope adopted Scot, I know that I have the best of both worlds, and I think that Scotland does too. And I worry that in an independent Scotland, my life would be totally different. Like many of us, I have family all across the UK. My dad lives in Sussex, my stepdad lives in Inverness. If Scotland were independent, we'd be separated by more than just distance, but by borders designed to keep us apart. As one of the many Scots that depend on English companies for their livelihood, I worry about whether my job would still be there if we separated from the UK. I have an account with RBS. Would we have been able to bail them out as an independent country? And what would that have meant for me? In the UK, we have the security of being part of a larger country, combined with the freedom to run our own affairs when we think that's best. If we stay together next year, we can keep that security and build on those freedoms and keep on having the best of both worlds. We've got some fantastic speakers here for you today. Before they start, then we're just going to watch a short film.
I love loads of things about Scotland. I love the music, I love the culture, I love the opportunities that you can have.
I'm proud to be Scottish. It's where I was born and it's what I've been my whole life, and it's not going to change.
Alexander Graham, Fleming Unit, Penicillin, John Beard, Anti-Money.
Mashad, Conwa.
I love the scenery, I love how green it is, I like the people.
There's nothing really in any part of the world which is better than actually you can find in Scotland itself. We have it all.
There's space, there's beauty of scenery, friendly people, and lots of opportunities for business.
I would say I'm definitely proud to be Scottish and proud to be British. I think in Scotland we definitely have the best of both worlds.
I'm very patriotic, and it's because I'm patriotic that I don't want independence.
I know Scottish poems, I know Scottish songs, I go to bird suppers, I like tartan. You know, what makes me not patriotic just because I don't want independence? You know, we're not in Braveheart, you know, there's a lot of other things going on.
One of the best education systems in the world at the moment. I wouldn't want that to change.
We're guaranteed our schools, we're guaranteed our hospital care.
Aberdeen will always be a very busy place, but only busy, continue being busy and doing well for part of the UK.
4 nations, we all pull together extremely well.
English, Welsh, Irish, the Air Force and the Scottish Regiment Garrison, we were all one.
I think together we're much stronger, we're a family unit, you can support each other a lot better.
See, it's a lot of brother and sister, might all agree on a lot of things, might have fallouts, but at the end of the day we still get back together, which means the United Kingdom as it is today.
Scotland's the football battle that you get around here. It's the rivalry, the friendliness of everyone here.
As a Scottish rugby fan, I like to see the English getting stuffed as much as the next Scotsman, but I think we have more shared history and shared culture over the last few hundred years than separates us.
I don't want to feel like in a few years that if I go down to England, I don't want to feel like I shouldn't really be there because I'm not part of the UK anymore, so I don't want to feel isolated from the rest of the UK.
If you go separate, you're on your own, right? There's no way back to that. Whereas if you're together, you've got allies.
I think we've been together for so long now that it would be kind of difficult for us to be apart. Kind of like a relationship or a marriage.
I love Scotland. That's one of the reasons that I'm not going to support independence, because I don't think it's good for the country.
I'm British and I've been British for 71 years, and I've been British until I'm in a wooden box.
I'm a proud Scot, but I also consider myself a member of the United Kingdom, and I stress the word united.
Better together,
saying no to becoming separate from the United Kingdom is not a bad thing. It's surely a positive thing.
I love the fact that I'm Scottish, I love Scotland, but I love that we're a part of the UK.
You must keep your head up and you must keep looking upwards and keep your horizon as broad as possible. And that's what I say.
I'm voting no for the future, for my kids and their kids.
Great film. It's, you know, you can clearly see from that there are so many people across Scotland who love the country and who are so passionate about keeping us part of the United Kingdom. Without any further delay, I'd like to hand over to our first speaker, the leader of the Scottish Labour Party, John Lamont.
Thank you very much, Sophie, and thank you to everyone who has come along here today. Can I start off by saying that I am delighted to be here, and it's precisely because I am a proud Scot who loves Scotland dearly and its people dearly that I'm here to argue for Scotland staying strong in the United Kingdom. I believe profoundly that it is in the interest of Scotland to be better together as part of the United Kingdom, standing strong with the rest of the United Kingdom. Now, we know that Scotland deserves better than we have at the moment. We deserve better living standards, better schools and hospitals, secure jobs and a vision of what Scotland can be. But at the moment, we can't address the pressing needs of you and me, of families throughout our country, because Alex Salmond has the nation on pause as we await his referendum. And Scotland definitely does deserve better than this. And with the greatest respect to my colleagues and everyone in this room, I didn't come into politics to debate the Constitution, to have to spend my time simply sharing platforms rather than debating the huge ideas that we disagree and agree on. But we do share many common values, and we come together today because despite our differences, there is one truth that we all hold to. Scotland stands on its own 2 feet, but it stands that bit taller because we're in partnership with our neighbours we call the United Kingdom. We believe what Scotland believes, that community sharing and pooling resources is more important than division. And we believe absolutely that there is more that binds us across the United Kingdom than would ever divide us. Families across the country, the length and breadth of the United Kingdom, fear the same things, want the same things for their families, and it will not be by dividing ourselves from them that we will address these problems. And I may disagree with my colleagues on many things, but I will never doubt the sincerity of their desire to improve Scotland. Yet that breadth of view, that acknowledgement of a common humanity, is not possible for Alex Salmond. He believes that only by following him can you be a true Scot. It's a kind of Tartan Messiah complex. Anything else... and somehow your Scottishness can be doubted, and that he uniquely speaks up for Scotland. He does not. Alex Salmond has no right to doubt anyone's commitment to Scotland, and certainly not when the path he is setting out on is so destructive to Scotland's future. The truth is that Alex Salmond is putting his referendum ahead of the interests of the people of Scotland. He wants you to believe that this is a fight between Scotland and England. Well, I have said this before. I will say it again, and I will keep on saying it. This referendum isn't Scotland versus England. It is Scotland versus Salmond, and Scotland is going to win. Because it's better for us and it's better for them. And indeed, in a funny way, the SNP acknowledge that. That is why they say what is best for Scotland is to keep the pounds, keep the Queen, keep the welfare state, keep the banking regulation. The list goes on and no doubt is being added to as we speak. Well, I agree. I believe that Scotland should keep those great institutions that we have created with our friends and neighbours. And can I tell you, the best way to keep them is by keeping in the United Kingdom the country Scotland built with our neighbours. Division is not a great Scottish tradition, but solidarity is, community is, sharing is. Those are true Scottish values, and we are proud to share them and reaffirm them in the next year. And in the next year, let us remember why meetings like this matter. It is not the meeting, but the coming together of people who have a shared vision of what Scotland can be inside the United Kingdom. This debate is far too important to be left to politicians shouting at each other. It is about you and people across Scotland arguing and debating with their families, with their workmates, within their communities about why it matters for Scotland to stay inside the United Kingdom. We, as proud Scots, must campaign over the next year. Yes, to win people's votes, never to be complacent about what might happen, but to recognise there's a huge opportunity here, not just to reject Alex Salmond's flawed prospectus for a separate Scotland, but to take the opportunity to reaffirm, to embrace how much we love the United Kingdom and our neighbours across the United Kingdom, and to make it clear, not that we somehow have no choice but to stay in the United Kingdom, but we enthusiastically embrace the opportunity to work in partnership with people right across the United Kingdom to make sure that Scotland is a better place, that our families and the future for our children is better than it has been in the past. And it is that challenge for all of us here, to have the debate, yes, but to make sure over the next year, let's go out as proud Scots, arguing for the United Kingdom where Scotland can stand tall and cooperate with our friends right across the United Kingdom. Thank you.
Complex to my dictionary. I'll hand you over to our next speaker, who is leader of the Scottish Liberal Democrats, Willie Rennie.
On this exact ground in 1879, William Gladstone addressed an audience of thousands in the newly built St Andrew's Hall. It was part of his famous Midlothian campaign, in which he first extolled the virtues of Home Rule. Gladstone would be pleased to hear Alex Salmond celebrating the success of the Scottish Parliament. You might be surprised. Mr Salmond refused to sign the Claim of Right and walked away from the convention that set up the Parliament. However, Gladstone himself would recognise the sinner that repenteth. While they celebrate Holyrood, what nationalists overlook is that the very success of the Parliament has been because of what we share with the rest of the United Kingdom as much as what we control ourselves. We have the best of both worlds. We have a strong Parliament, a strong Scottish Parliament, making real decisions here in Scotland about Scotland. But we still get the benefit of sharing risks, rewards and resources with the rest of the UK, backed up by the strength and security of the large and diverse UK economy. We know sometimes it makes sense to pool our resources. We understand some things are easier when you have friends and family standing beside you. We are stronger when we work together. We decide what is best for our universities in the Scottish Parliament, and our world-class universities are backed by big UK funding for Scottish scientists, doctors and inventors. We make decisions about the NHS in Scotland, and we get cost-free, hassle-free access to the specialist treatment our family needs anywhere in the UK NHS. We benefit from the success of the Scottish Parliament, and we benefit from sharing resources with the rest of the UK. The best of both worlds. Even though the nationalists are right about the success of the Parliament, they are wrong when they say that independence is the only way to protect devolution. They are wrong, because with independence, devolution is scrapped. Now, I'm delighted that Ruth for the Conservatives and Joanne for Labour have taken big steps with their parties on developing plans for more powers for the Scottish Parliament. Mint Campbell has published our plans. Think tanks and academics and non-party organisations have drafted proposals as well. This is great progress. I believe that we can secure that change by a greater coming together. By our efforts in the next year, we can win a prize for the long term, one that keeps Scotland in the United Kingdom and yet sets us on a short path to a stronger Scottish Parliament, which is where the majority of people want to be, the best of both worlds. I believe that the three significant advantages of our partnership with the rest of the United Kingdom are economic strength, social equity and global clout. Although these have ebbed and flowed over the 300 years of our partnership, they remain strengths that have benefited people across the United Kingdom. These strengths have enabled Scots to achieve more, whether it be individual Scots who have made it in the world stage, or everyone who has benefited from the creation of the welfare state, pensions or NHS, or the financial security that we have through the diverse economy and industries that pay taxes. There's little doubt that there are advantages to the United Kingdom. A country that is so caring for the sick that it invents the NHS is a country I want to remain part of. And a country that has the financial strength that it can bail out the banks in a crisis is a country I want to remain part of. A country that is so compassionate that it has the second largest international aid budget in the world is a country I want to remain part of. With Scotland in the United Kingdom, we get the best of both worlds, and it's up to us to keep it that way. Thank you.
Very well, but much better than I could have said it. I'd like to hand you over now to our next speaker, Ruth Davidson, the leader of the Scottish Conservative Party.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving up part of your Saturday to come here today. I'm delighted to be here. I'm going to talk just a little bit more personally about one or two of the issues that I think are important in this debate and why I'm going to be voting no. I'm going to be campaigning with people right across Scotland to ensure that we remain part of the United Kingdom, and why I think at the moment we have the best of both worlds and can go on to much greater things in Scotland as part of the United Kingdom. I believe, as the four home nations, we've built some truly astounding, truly impressive, truly inspirational institutions in our country to which we all benefit. I want to talk about just a couple of them today. The first of them I want to talk about is our armed forces. I come from a family that's had members that have been involved in the Army, in the Navy and in the Marines, and myself, I spent a few years in the Territorial Army, in the Reserve Forces. And I've also seen in my previous job, before I got elected as a politician, some of the work that our armed forces do up close. As a very young journalist, I was sent over to Kosovo to look at some of the work that our troops were doing over there. I didn't grow up in Glasgow, I grew up in Fife, I went to school in Buckhaven, and a lot of the lads at that time who weren't very academic got jobs in the army afterwards and joined the Black Watch, which was our local regiment, and that was who I was stationed with when I was over there. And I've never been so proud in all my life to see the work that they were doing over there, because they helped stop the slaughter of innocent people, and they did that with the Union flag on their arm. And actually more than that, more than just doing house cleaning to take explosives out of people's homes, more than just protecting children when they were on their way back to school to try and nation build. They also gave up some of their own time as well, because that's the kind of ethos of the British Army, is that you give just that little bit more. And they would come in from their patrols and they'd put down their weapons and they'd have a brew. And I saw lads who were no older than me, sort of 20, 21 at the time, I was very young, go back out with picks and shovels and help build an orphanage for those people that they hadn't been able to protect. And I'm proud that in our country we have a history of coming together and saying, do you know what, if you're not able to protect yourselves, we will stand up and we will help protect you. And that's one reason why I think we are better together and have the best of both worlds. One of the other reasons I think is, and Willie's already talked about this, is about our NHS that we've built over a number of years. My sister is a doctor, she works for the NHS. She spent much of her working life in the Freeman Hospital in Newcastle, in a specialist unit for heart disease. Now, in the west of Scotland, we have some issues with heart disease. And I think what's really impressive is that because of how we exist across the 4 home nations, it doesn't matter what issues that you have with your health. Yes, you can get treated here, but if there's not a specialist unit here in Scotland, then you can absolutely just go to her unit in Newcastle or one elsewhere. And there is nothing that gets in the way of that. These are things that we take for granted. But these aren't things that are certain after a yes vote, and we should appreciate them. And the third and final thing that I'd like to talk about is the opportunities for our young people. Because I live in a city which has fantastic opportunities for jobs. I did a big speech yesterday about some of the jobs that are available in Scotland right now and where we can go in the future. And I talked about financial services. And in Glasgow, you've got Santander, you've got Barclays, you've got Direct Line, you've got all of these financial services companies. There are 160,000 jobs in financial services in Scotland. And all of them rely on the fact that we have similar regulation right across the sector. The fact that you're able to interchange. We sell 84% of the mortgages sold by Scottish firms in Scotland get sold to people in the rest of the UK. 9.9 billion pounds worth of exports are from financial services to the UK. That's twice the export value of every other sector, any other sector, that Scotland sells. And that is to our partners across the way. So for me, both personally and my experiences and my family's experiences, but also for Scotland, I see that at the moment we do have the best of both worlds. We do have control over health, over education, over policing through the Scottish Parliament. And we make laws about that, and Willie and Joanne and I, we debate with Alex Salmond, and we talk about that every single day, and we have control over that. But we also have strength from standing with our friends, standing with our family members in other parts of the UK, from standing with the other home nations. And we do get the security of our armed forces. We do get the benefits of our health service, and we do get the opportunities in jobs and prosperity from being part of a wider whole. And that's why I hope that you'll stand with us and go out and tell your friends, your family, your workmates that we are better together and we do have the best of both worlds. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Ruth. I just think it's been great actually that we have the leaders of 3 different political parties here who come from such diverse political backgrounds to come together and campaign on something that they are also committed to in the common interest. I think that's absolutely brilliant. So thank you all for giving up the time and coming here this morning. Now, I'm very pleased to have with us here today our final speaker, who is the chair of the Better Together campaign, Alistair Darling.
Ladies and gentlemen, for coming to this meeting this afternoon. It's also a pleasure to follow my colleagues on the platform. I agree with just about everything they said, which is quite a rare thing in politics. It doesn't matter whether my own party, the Conservatives, even the Liberal Democrats, I agree with what speaker said. And I particularly enjoyed your reference, Willie, to your successful leader, Gladstone, who I haven't actually realised that the Midlothian campaign actually stretched across to Glasgow. It just shows that even that long ago, the 2 cities were much closer than some people sometimes think. Do you know, in just over a year's time, we will make the biggest decision that we will ever have to have made in our lives when we vote in this referendum. And the stakes are high. Remember this, from the nationalist point of view, they only need to win once by 1 vote, and there's no going back. That's it. We need to win next September, and we need to win well to put this issue to bed for a generation, so we can get on and discuss things that really matter to people in Scotland, like their health, like their education, the quality of life. It is so important that we win this well next year, and that's why we need your help. Now, in the last year that we've been campaigning, I think we've every reason to believe that we are increasingly confident in the argument that we make. And it is a positive case that we make for the United Kingdom. The opportunities that come from being part of a large country in terms of jobs, in terms of the security that it provides. It is a very, very powerful argument. Of course, we've also got the best of both worlds, where we make decisions here in Scotland about our health and education, about policing, but we are part of a larger economy, which is so important for our future. We are also part of a United Kingdom that we helped build. And don't let the nationalists tell you that somehow this was imposed upon us. A United Kingdom that we helped build, and that can be such a good influence throughout the world if we choose to make it that way. And of course, there is that bond between us and the other people of the United Kingdom. We are proud to live in Scotland. We are proud of being Scottish, but we know there is something bigger. We are also proud of being British as well. And I, for one, don't see why I should have to choose between being Scottish or British. I want to be both. When I launched our campaign just over a year ago, I said that we would mount a very positive and powerful case for the United Kingdom, because we know there is something bigger, something better that benefits us living in Scotland. But I also said that I wasn't going to get put off asking questions of the argument. Because just think about it, if someone came to you with a proposition that they said will change your life forever, you're entitled to say, well, tell me why. You know, let's go through your arguments. And of course, when I said that, I was accused by the nationalists of being negative. And what I discovered is, being negative is asking Alex Salmond a question to which he doesn't know the answer. One of the striking things over the last year is just how little confidence the nationalists have in their own argument. And I sometimes wonder, what is it they're trying to sell us? Because they say, everything will change, but don't worry, nothing will change. And they're now trying to sell us, you know, a very dodgy product indeed, something that's called Indie Light. The very name, actually, should sound alarm bells in your mind. It's clearly a gimmick dreamt up by the advertising man to sell us something we don't want and we don't need. You know, if you just look at some of the things they're arguing, and go right back to the start when they said, everything will change if Scotland became independent. But of course, nothing would change. We'd still be the same members of the European Union, and we've got a legal opinion to back it up. Well, we asked, negatively, okay, where is this legal opinion? What did we find? It didn't exist, and it had never been asked for. We were being told something that simply was not true. Or if you take the currency, you know, 2 or 3 years ago, we were told that sterling was a millstone around Scotland's neck, and we joined the euro. Now, the euro is as popular in Scotland as it is in Essex. And they dropped that. They then said they'd use the currency in the same way as Panama uses the US dollar. And that would mean your interest rate's been set by a foreign government. You have no control over basic day-to-day things. Then they said, we'll have a currency union. Now, a currency union, you don't have to imagine what that is like. That's simply what you've got in the Eurozone. It means another country will decide on how much you can spend, how much you can tax, how much you can borrow. That's not freedom, that's not independence, that's serfdom. That's, you know, people moan about the power of the Treasury, and you know, I used to run the Treasury, it's a great thing. The Treasury has that power. What you will have under what they're arguing now is even more power for a Treasury, except it will be a foreign Treasury telling us what we can tax, what we can spend, what we can borrow. And a Treasury over which we will have no democratic control whatsoever. Then they say, don't worry about the financial services industry, which so many people in this city and in Scotland depend upon, because the Bank of England will carry on regulating the industry. And yet that bank will be a foreign bank, over which we've got no control. You know, Sophie was saying she's got her account with RBS. It's 5 years ago, next month, when I received a call from the then chairman of RBS, and he wrote for me one morning, and remember RBS at that time was one of the biggest banks in the world, and he said, "We're running out of money. What are you going to do about it?" It was interesting. And I said, "How long can you last?" And he said, "Well, maybe 3 hours." And that bank had shut, had brought down the entire banking system, probably in the Western world. But I could say, we can keep you open. I said, we can stop this happening because I had the strength of the United Kingdom behind me. I could never have done that if I was the finance minister of Scotland. We just couldn't have done it. Whether it's the currency, keeping the pound, whether it's the security of our banking system, on the welfare system, whether it's on keeping the BBC or simply reducing ourselves to eavesdropping on a foreign country's broadcaster, do not believe for 1 minute that if you vote for this indie light, that somehow it doesn't matter, nothing's going to change. You can't walk away from a club and expect to retain all the benefits that go with it. Why on earth would we throw away something that we, together with people throughout the United Kingdom, have built up over the last 300 years for no benefit whatsoever? Why would we do that? We have the strength, we have the power of the United Kingdom, and at the same time, the best of both worlds. We're fiercely proud of what we can do in Scotland, what we can do for our fellow citizens. We do need the best of both worlds. We want to be proud of what we can do, but at the same time, we know there is something bigger, something that is stronger. We truly are better and stronger together as part of the United Kingdom. Thank you very much.
Most comprehensive defence of the Union I've ever heard. I feel like we should put it in a book and give it to people, things to tell the nationalists when they knock on your door. It was wonderful, thank you. We've got time now to take some questions from the audience. So if you have any questions for our panel, please pop your hand up and someone will come around with a microphone. If you could address your questions to the panel, please, not to individual speakers, that would be great. We'll take them in groups of 3. So if we could have the man in the striped shirt on the end, please. Just go down, thank you. And there are the gentleman in the green shirt and the... Sorry, do you both want to speak? Yes. Okay, those 3 gentlemen there, please.
My name is John Kane. I'm the Labour candidate in the government by-election. Alex Salmond says that he wants to keep the pound, but there's no guarantee that we can do this. Do you feel that a Eurozone-style fiscal union would be bad for Scotland?
Thanks, John.
So, Alistair Campbell's my name. I'm one of 2. There's a couple in Glasgow who are certainly for the best of both worlds. As far as I know, there's another one I'm not mentioning at the moment, south of the border. I'm from Renfrewshire, and we have a great history there of promoting and working and opening up business to the world. The Kirk, in fact, used to call Renfrewshire the cradle of the Royal Stuarts. I now call it Scotland's gateway to the world, and there's no charge to council members for that name. The Kirk will gladly receive the donation in due course. But I have 3 questions, 3 little points, in fact. I'll leave you, Madam Chairman, to decide whether you put it to each of the parties or not. One is, as regards the bureaucracy of Better Together, I've come across this a little in that we're not yet launched in Renfrewshire, yet we don't have access to the abilities to promote. We will get launched in Renfrewshire. I like the format of what you're doing now, but I think it might be difficult to repeat. What if, for example, we had a gathering and a more socially minded event with a political speaker or 2 at the beginning, and then a big party for, shall we say, all the various clans, political clans in Renfrewshire to agree to get together and come together socially and promote that side of it. That's one point. I'll wrap it up. I'll stop at that to give the other questions I have are similar, but separate points. But I'll give other people opportunities, and if there's time later, come back.
In that case, can we take the question from the other gentleman with the camera if you answer the question?
Yes. My name is Alex McGinn. I come from Forth in South Lanarkshire, and like the gentleman behind me, I have a couple of things that I would like to ask, but in particular with our reference to the military. And at one time in Afghanistan, I read a report that 40% of service personnel in Afghanistan are actually Scottish. And does she not feel that Scotland is contributing vastly over our capability to the British military? And also, since we have the biggest nuclear arms base in Western Europe, just down the road, and at Cape Wrath we have the biggest bombing range, the only bombing range in Western Europe, where the entire Europe's military can practice the use of bombing. Do you not think that we are over-contributing to the defence of Western Europe? And really, the Scottish people are taking so much risk in having our biggest city, which could be wiped out in the event of a nuclear attack. We would have no more tourism, we would have no more...
I'm very proud of the contribution that Scotland makes. The Ministry of Defence, supporting the armed forces, has personnel, has people, has investment, creates jobs in 30 of our 32 local authorities across Scotland. I think that it's greatly to the advantage of the West of Scotland economy that we have more than 8,000 jobs based at Faslane. And we just had an announcement last week that £31 million is going to be spent there upgrading and increasing housing provision for service personnel. And having seen the work that our soldiers do abroad, and as I spoke very briefly about there, I'm proud of the contribution that Scots have made, not just this year, not just last year, but over the last 300 years of our shared endeavour. I think that we've helped make...
Stuart's right here. Have your opportunity to ask a question if you can let the panel answer, please.
You're absolutely entitled to your opinion, sir. We tend not to interrupt any nationalist meeting. We said that we wouldn't go along and try and disrupt them. But if you've got questions for us, then I'm happy to answer it. And I'm happy to state on the record that I'm incredibly proud of the commitment that Scottish service personnel make to the UK Armed Forces. I'm incredibly proud of the commitment the UK makes to helping across the world in terms of its military endeavours.
On John's question about currency.
Yeah, you were asking about a currency union. As I said earlier, if you have a currency union, in order to make it work, it means that both parties to it firstly have to agree that they're going into it. And remember, the nationalists have never ever asked anyone else in the UK whether or not they would go into this arrangement. And the First Minister of Wales said he didn't want anything to do with it. You know, the current UK Chancellor said he's pretty sceptical about it. But even supposing you did get a currency union, in order to make it work, and you see this in the Eurozone now, you have to agree on your tax and spending policies, on borrowing limits, and so on. And to me, as I said, that's not independence. Somebody else, and in this case, 90% of the economy would be in one part of this union, 10% in the other. Somebody else would be telling you what you can do. And this idea that somehow you could go it alone and have different tax rates here, or be borrowing more or spending more, and you could do what you like and stay in the currency union, it's nonsense. Just ask yourself this simple question. When the Eurozone meets to agree its budgets, and Germany sits down with Portugal, who exactly do you think is going to call the shots? Is Chancellor Merkel going to say, listen to the Portuguese Prime Minister, say, you're quite right, I think we should be doing something completely different to what I believe in? Of course not. And this is the nonsense of it. And the only reason Alex Salmond is running this argument is because he wants to try and reassure us that, don't worry, nothing will change. Actually, it will be worse than anything that we've got at the moment, because a foreign treasury will be telling us what to do. And I just think, on that argument alone, it just simply blows the case for independence apart. I think increasingly more
Scotland has as much right to defend.
Oh, shut up! Get out of here!
We don't interrupt, we don't
Good
interrupt this event, so we appreciate it if you would not interrupt us, because people are trying to ask questions and we would like to answer them. Willie wanted to make a brief point, sorry, and then Jared.
If you don't believe in nuclear weapons, I don't see why docking them south of the border makes the world a safer place.
Exactly. Exactly.
I said was I was proud to be here because I was a proud Scot. We need to stop people hijacking the notion of caring about Scotland only to the Yes campaign. I think that's part of the example. What's happened in the last period is there's been a closing in Scotland that somehow uniquely we care about things, uniquely we're worried about these big issues. There are people across the world yearning for peace and a different way of doing things, and working with people in partnership where we will get solutions rather than closing in on ourselves and telling ourselves that we are absolutely fantastic and everyone else is different from us. These points, the fiscal union, political union thing. The reality is Alex Salmond has argued for independence for 40 years. The fact he's not able to answer some basic questions is astonishing. But what we know is that whether it is in Scotland's economic interest or not, he will argue for independence. And that is the example of the currency debate. It's nonsense on stilts. The idea that you say we need to be freed from the rest of the United Kingdom to achieve our potential, and once we're freed, they will oblige us by allowing us to have them as a banker of last resort simply makes no point. But the last point made by a friend, Alistair Campbell, the idea that perhaps we could have events that are good fun maybe becomes a bit astonishing to some of us. But I agree with you. This campaign will be one beyond the normal way of doing things, beyond the normal political argy-bargy. It will be about people feeling confident enough to say, I'm a Scot and I believe we are better, stronger inside the United Kingdom. And when we as Better Together go beyond ourselves, organise events that draw on that instinctive thing that we need every day when we're talking to people what's going to happen in a year's time, we will be strengthened, because it will mean then that people will say, yes, actively, I want to see part of the United Kingdom. I see the benefits my family and my friends experience. As somebody said